Functional. Isn't that a trendy word going around in this fitness profession? It's functional training. I want to know about functional training. And people name their businesses using functional in the business because that's the new trend at the moment. And what's quite amazing is when you actually go through their business and have a look at a lot of the exercises they do in the business, it's not always that functional. So let's have a look at what is actually functional and define function. Well, functional is really a movement pattern or an exercise that is really related to the function of life, or sometimes the function of a sport. So first of all, functional has to be related to what we encounter on a day-to-day basis in our daily movement patterns, whether it be doing the gardening, or lifting up your baby, or lifting up the shopping, or pushing the wheelbarrow, or opening the door, or unloading the boot of the car. That's function. So when you look at function, always remember what function is. Function means it's functional to daily life activity. So when you look at different exercises, it's always good to remove the emotion, remove the benefit, remove the claim, remove the promise, and look at the exercise with virgin eyes without knowing anything, and apply the basic principles of function to determine whether that is truly a functional exercise. Now, most of our function as human beings, because we're not snakes, we're not lizards, we're not dolphins, we're humans. We stand up. We walk around in the upright position. So a lot of our muscles are designed to keep us in the upright position and to stabilise our joints while we can do running and climbing and lifting and stepping and kicking and throwing or spearing, whatever it might be, in the upright position. So a lot of our muscles are designed from a functional point of view to keep us in the upright position and perform the upright position. So the first thing to take into account is a lot of functional exercises you come across are actually laying on the ground. So that doesn't make any sense. Why would you train muscles? Functional muscles are designed to control and move us in the upright position, and why would you train them in the laying down position? So that's a good little starting point where, okay, well, a lot of people, they hop on a machine. Well, a lot of machines aren't functional because you don't live your life in a machine, you don't live your life on the ground, you don't live your life in a ball of air, you don't live your life hanging from a ceiling or hanging from ropes, whatever it might be. So these are some of the things to take in consideration, but let me take you through a process to decide whether something is functional. Well, the first thing, number one rule, is what I call the look rule. It means you look at something and you go, well, that's weird. Well, if it's weird, it probably is weird. Well, that looks stupid. Well, if it looks stupid, it probably is stupid. Well, that looks like it could hurt someone. Well, if that's your initial response, then you're probably right. So you're just using your instincts and your common sense. Now, I know common sense is not always common and normally leads to nonsense, but I'm sure you listening, because you're listening to this, you probably have some common sense. So use a common sense rule. Rather than listening to the noise or the crowd or the opinions of others or the trends or the fashions in the profession, think for yourself, analyse for yourself using anatomical procedures and a nice little logical process to make sure you get the right outcome, not just repeating other people's opinions about a certain exercise. So use the common sense rule to start with. The next step when you look at a exercise from a functional point of view is have to ask this basic question: where in life do I use that type of look? That position. Look at the position of the exercise, and if you're laying down doing something, then you say, where do I do that in life? Or if I'm hanging from something, where do I do that in life? Or so the next step is just the body position. Is the body in the right position? For example, if I'm laying on the ground and I'm a fighter by nature, I've done lots of martial arts and combat sports, and I'm laying on the ground and punching, you probably think that's really weird because when I fight in the upright position. So why do I train my punches while laying down? That doesn't make any sense. I'm in the wrong position. I'm in the upright position. I was talking to one of my students the other day, and he's a professional boxer, and he does all these abdominal exercises. I said, well, you're doing your abdominal, where do you do them? So I do them on the ground. He says, I didn't realise you fought on the ground. Well, I don't. I'm upright. So why are you training your abdominal muscles on the ground when they function in the upright position when you're in the fight ring? So it might be better to maybe put your body in the right position to train those muscles rather than put your body in a dysfunctional position to train those muscles. The next one to look at is joint movement. Is the joint movement functional, what parts of life. So if you're doing, say, a crunch, for example, you're working these muscles and you're doing this movement pattern, but really those muscles really function in the upright position and stabilise your pelvis and your lower back in a static position, in an isometric position. So why are you doing a concentric, eccentric, or an isotonic movement to train a group of muscles that stabilise yourself in the upright position in an isometric way? So it's it's the wrong contraction, it's the wrong joint movement. So look at an exercise and say, is it functional from a joint movement point of view? If you're doing a leg extension, well, the leg extends not that way in function, because you don't sit down on a chair with your hip flex, your knee flex, your ankle dorsiflex in a flat back, kyphotic, poke neck, rounded shoulder position with the load at the end of your tibia doing a leg extension. Because in life, you don't do a leg extension. In life, you flex the knee while doing a compression movement, such as this, not by a extension movement with a load at the end of the lever, because the movement pattern there is not appropriate to life function. So number one is the look principle. Number two, is the body in the right position? Number three, is it using all the joints in a cooperative, synchronized manner that replicate daily functional movement? And next one is looking at the load and the speed of the movement. Is the load and the speed of the movement relative to daily life activities? And if it's not, then it's not. If you're swinging weights like this, then that load, that position of the load at the end of a long lever with acceleration and speed, is that something you have to do in life? What part of life do you swing a weight like this? And if you probably did that in the workplace, the occupational health and safety officer would jump on you and say, don't do that, because we're going to get sued if you do that, because that's actually a dangerous movement pattern. I'm sure there's no occupation in Australia or New Zealand that allows you to do that movement on a repetitive nature with a load at the end of the lever, swinging it up and down, because that's just the wrong joint movement. It's the wrong load with the wrong speed that is completely unrelated to the daily requirements to live a fit, healthy, strong life. Maybe if there's a sport that does that, which I can't think of anymore, I have to be quite creative, then you may be able to justify it. But if you're going down that path, then an argument from extreme many times is a weak argument. So when you're looking at function of an exercise, first of all, use the common sense to look and see, okay, does that make any sense? Number two, is the body in the right position? For example, a leg extension, a leg press, my apologies, a lot of people love the leg press. Yes, from a joint point of view, you've got knee extension and ankle plantar flexion and hip extension, but the body position is in the wrong position, because what part of life do you lay on your back, stick your legs in the air and push your weight in the air? Plus, from a joint point of view, your hip joint is overly flexed. You know, if I had to do a leg press position from a leg press movement from a function point of view, I'm actually doing this with my bum in the upright position, but I'm laying on the ground. Doesn't make any sense from a functional point of view. So, look principle, body position, joint movement, and then the last one is joint speeds and joint loads. And if they're not related to function, then it's a dysfunctional exercise. And there could be a far better exercise to do to really promote function that's going to transfer from that exercise into the function of life or the function of sport. So take that into account. But I think many times if you just use your common sense, you won't even have to go through the rest, because if it doesn't make common sense, then it's probably nonsense.